welcome to Lunenburg Storytime. My name is John Fortune, and today I'm going to read a book about a famous person who I knew growing up. At the time, there were two children's programs I watched faithfully, Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Fred Rogers always entertained us with a simple home, a great imagination, special guests, and the town of make-believe that was filled with talking puppets to entertain us. He would visit area businesses or just stay home and wait for visitors to come to him. Throughout the program, we would learn new things and be made to feel special in some way. Everybody liked Mr. Rogers. Let's learn a little bit about Mr. Rogers. This book is from the Ordinary People Change the World series. Its title is I Am Fred Rogers, and it's written by Brad Metzler and illustrated by Christopher Iliopoulos. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in the beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So, let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor? Hi neighbor, I am Mr. Rogers. I grew up in a town called Latrobe, Pennsylvania. It was a small town with a real trolley, the kind of place where everybody knew their neighbors. Hi there, hi neighbor, hi Fred. When I was little, I wasn't popular. I was shy and didn't like sports. Bullies would call me names. One day, as I was walking home, I had the feeling that I was being followed. Sure enough, some boys were behind me. I started walking faster, and they started walking faster, getting closer and louder. Hey, Freddie, we're going to get you, Freddie. I was mad at those kids and felt bad that they couldn't see me as anything but shy and weak. I cried in my room a lot. I was scared of many things, like going to the doctor, being alone. I don't want to go, and starting school. I don't want to go. Freddie, you have to go. I once ordered an exercise kit to give me big muscles. It didn't work. But you see, there's nothing wrong with being scared. It's all right to feel how you're feeling. I was also sick a lot as a kid with diseases like scarlet fever and asthma. Stuck in bed by myself, I'd use my toys and make up stories. I'd pretend my knees were mountains. I can make it to the summit. Then the adventure would begin. I'd enter my world of make-believe. Almost to the summit. Eventually, I added puppets and even had my own puppet theater in our attic. It had a real stage where I'd entertain family and friends. Telling those make-believe stories helped me feel so much better. He's really good at this. Something else that helped me when I was worried or sad was music. My dad and I would parade through the house banging and strumming away on instruments. Music is the one art we all have inside. We may not be able to play an instrument, but we can all sing along or tap our feet. I wasn't the type of kid who asked for very much, but when I was 10, I asked my grandmother for a real piano. Nana, I really would like it. Maybe you should go visit the piano store. I took the trolley by myself to downtown Pittsburgh. For hours, I played every piano in the store. Finally, I said, "This is the one." Are you sure you can afford it? It was a second-hand 1920 Steinway. The next day, the salesperson couldn't believe it when I came back with a check from my grandmother. My Nana says hi. That piano changed my life, giving me confidence and comfort. But it wasn't just a piano that my grandmother gave me, it was love. It sounds wonderful, Freddie. It was the same with my grandfather, Fred McFeely, whom was named after. He'd teach me about the world and myself. After each visit, he would say, "Freddie, you made this day a special day for me." He helped me realize how valuable every human being is, including myself. Isn't that beautiful? The love from a grandparent is so special. Love is at the root of everything, all learning and teaching and relationships. My parents, especially my mom, taught me the value of sharing that love with others. When she heard that a student couldn't afford new shoes, she bought him brand new high tops. "Wow, new sneakers, where did these come from?" A caring neighbor. Over time, the school nurse would order coats, eyeglasses, even furniture, and send the bills to my mom, who never took any credit for them. Wouldn't it be great if love like that was shown to all kids? Every Christmas, she'd make new sweaters for every one of our family. She had all these different patterns. "I know the kind you want, Freddie, the one with the zipper up the front." I feel like this is going to be important later. When I would see scary things in the news as a boy, my mother would repeat one of my life's greatest lessons. Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are willing to help. My senior year of high school, I saw something that changed my life. Television. Whoa! The show I was watching had people throwing pies at each other. Isn't that great? I'm not so sure it's that great. I couldn't understand why the new devices were being used to make fun of people when it could instead be such a wonderful tool for education. But there was one thing I knew for sure. I wanted to work in television. My first job was in New York at NBC. One of the stars of the show used to talk directly to the camera. "Howdy, young whippersnappers." "You're darn tootin', I will." I'd asked him how he connected to his audience when they weren't in the studio, and he couldn't see them. He explained it to me. I focus on one little buckaroo. I think of talking just to one little buckaroo. My real break came when a Pittsburgh TV station, WQED, said they wanted to do an educational show for children. This was my chance to bring together all the things I loved: music, my imagination, and of course, entertainment for kids. "You left a big city to come here? I have a good feeling about this." That was Joanne Rogers, my wife. The night before the first episode of our show, which we called the Children's Corner, our station manager, Dorothy Daniel, gave every staff member a little gift. "This is for you, Fred. I can't wait to see what it is." It was a little tiger puppet. "I heard you like puppets." "I do, thank you." I named him Daniel after the person who gave him to me. On our first episode, while trying to show a movie, the old film strip broke. "Fred, do something. The movie isn't working." What should I do?" "I don't know, but we're doing something live." I grabbed the tiger puppet and shoved him through the scenery, which was painted like a clock. I hope this works. It's 5:02. That was the first time I spoke through Daniel Tiger on air. I never planned to use puppets on the show. I was just filling time. One day, when our host Josie was having a bad day, she turned to the puppet and said, "I'm so upset." "Well, you just tell me all about it." As she shared her feelings, something amazing happened. Remember, it's okay to feel sad sometimes. "Thank you, Daniel. I feel so much better." On the show, we started focusing on these puppet conversations, giving us a way to talk directly to kids like you. It was like the make-believe conversations I used to have as a kid, but now thousands of kids were listening. As I ran around the backstage during each episode, my shoes started squeaking. "Shh! Why are you changing your shoes? These are sneakers with rubber soles, less squeaky." I feel like this will be important later. In 1963, after I'd spent 8 years doing puppets and playing music on the Children's Corner, a man named Dr. Fred Rainsbury asked if I would like to be on the air. I don't know, I'm kind of shy. At first, the show was called Mr. Rogers, but eventually we picked a better name. Don't worry, just look into the camera and pretend you're talking to a child. The new name, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I filled it with so much of my life. A small town, a clanging trolley, kind neighbors, music, and make-believe. And of course, the message that you and all children out there are valued. It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like. This is my friend, Jeff Erlinger. He's one of my neighbors here. I wanted you to see his wheelchair. Isn't it amazing? I spoke to kids directly so they could understand that it's okay to feel however they're feeling, even if it's excited, sad, angry, or scared. For 31 seasons and nearly 900 episodes, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood also taught kids to accept everyone, no matter their differences. Back in the 1960s, when I heard that black people weren't allowed to swim in the same pools as white people, I invited Officer Clemens to come to mine. I don't have a towel. It's okay, you can share mine. Officer Clemens was one of the first recurring black characters on children's TV. The actor, Francois, was surprised when I asked him to be a police officer on the show, but I told him that children need helpers, and I knew he'd be such a wonderful role model. When President Nixon tried to cut funding for my TV channel, PBS, I went to Washington, D.C. and spoke to Congress. We asked for $20 million to help grow national public television, but the senator in charge didn't seem to agree. Then I told him what I do on my show. I give an expression of care every day to each child to help him realize that he is unique. I end the program by saying, "You've made this day a special day just by being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are." Well, I'm supposed to be a pretty tough guy, and this is the first time I've had goosebumps for the last 2 days. Looks like you just earned your $20 million. In my life, I was shy and sad and sometimes even mad. Have you ever felt that way? It's okay. We all have moments when we feel blue. But when we talk about our feelings, they become less upsetting and less scary. Growing up, I used to think that being strong meant having big muscles. But real strength comes from what is not seen. Real strength comes from helping others. And when you do, you build the most powerful neighborhood. Did you know Mr. Rogers' red sweater is now in the Smithsonian Museum? It's one of the ones his mom made him. She made him a new one every year for 60 years. Eventually, the boy in the wheelchair, Jeff Erlinger, grew up, and when Mr. Rogers was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame, Erlinger surprised him on stage saying, "When you tell people that it's you I like, we know what you mean." And tonight, I want to let you know that on behalf of millions of children and grown-ups, it's you that we like. It's such a good feeling to know we're lifelong friends. And as you grow older, I hope you'll be a helper. You can help by sharing your kindness with others and showing them love. The greatest thing we can do is to let people know that they are loved and capable of loving. Thank you for spending this time with me. You are a very special person. There is only one you in the whole world. There's never been anyone like you before, and there will never be anyone like you again. I am Mr. Rogers, and I like you just the way you are. What an interesting story. Fred Rogers had a tough time growing up. He was picked on and illness, but he used the time alone to create new friends and fantastic stories that he later used in his television program. When he grew up, he continued using his imagination for educating children and what was to become the new mass media, television, something that we know now we watch every day. Today, Mr. Rogers is remembered by generations of adults as a friend, a storyteller, and an entertainer. His messages were always positive and made each of us feel special. We can all learn from Mr. Rogers to be nice to other people. It's always a beautiful day in the neighborhood when we say or do something kind for people we know or even for people we don't know. I'm John Fortune, and I want to thank you for watching Lunenburg Storytime. See you next time.
Hi, my name is Donna Fortune, and today I'm going to read you a book about an ordinary person who changed the world. The title of the book is I Am Frida Kahlo, written by Brad Meltzer and illustrated by Christopher Eliopoulos. I love science, technology, art, and things that move. I really like to take things apart to see how they work. I'm curious and enjoy learning about the world. It's animals and ordinary people like you and me who've done some pretty awesome things. I chose this book because, like so many other people, I think Frida Kahlo was an extraordinary person who did some pretty awesome things. What's an extraordinary person? Well, let's read the story about Frida Kahlo and see if we can figure it out. I am Frida Kahlo. I was born in Mexico in this house. Later, we painted it blue and called it La Casa Azul, the blue house. It stood out from everything else. Isn't it beautiful? When I was 6 years old, I got a disease called polio. It made my right leg thinner and shorter than my left leg. My leg hurts. I know, mamita. I had to stay in my room for 9 months. When I finally got out, kids would make fun of me. Look at Peg Leg, they would say. I tried hiding my leg under long skirts or by wearing extra socks. It didn't help. Thankfully, I always had a special place where I could escape. In my room, I'd breathe onto the window pane and draw a door. That door let me enter my imagination. There, I would visit a dairy called Pinzon. I entered through the O in the sign. It would take me down, down, down inside the earth where my imaginary friend was always waiting for me. I don't remember what she looked like or even what color she was, but together we would laugh and dance. I'd tell her all my problems and she would listen. That place made me happy. And when I'd blur the door with my hand, it would disappear. To strengthen my leg, my dad encouraged me to play sports. Soccer, wrestling, boxing, swimming, I did it all. "Great, you got it," he would say. Back then, these were considered boy sports, but not to me. One of the best things my dad shared with me was his curiosity about the world. As a photographer, he'd take me along when he went to shoot photos. "Okay, plants, say cheese." He also liked to paint. While he did his watercolors, I'd collect pebbles, plants, and even insects. I'd bring them home, looking up each item in my dad's books and examining them under a microscope. "Is that a real bug? Isn't it beautiful?" At 14, I went to the National Preparatory School, the best high school in Mexico. Of the 2,000 students, I was one of only 35 girls. My goal was to be a doctor one day. At school, we were supposed to dress and behave a certain way. I dressed differently. The wealthy mothers would take one look at me and yell, "What an ugly girl!" And the kids would say, "She certainly doesn't look like anyone else. I think she's kind of cool." To other students, I was really fascinating. My closest friends were a group of kids called the Cachucas, which is like a hot pepper. We were smart and loved to read, but sometimes we got in trouble, like when we rode a real donkey down the hallway. "Frida, are you sure this is a good idea?" "Pretty sure." One day, a famous painter named Diego Rivera was hired to create a mural in our auditorium. I watched him for 3 hours. I didn't know at the time, but my hardest days were coming. Soon, Diego and I would change each other's lives. At 18, I was in a terrible accident when a trolley smashed into the bus that I was riding. "It's horrible," people said. Someone on the bus had been carrying paint, so my body was covered in powdered gold. "She's really hurt," they said. A month later, after the accident, I came home from the hospital in a full body cast. My spinal column was broken in 3 places. The doctors literally had to put me back together. The pain in my leg and foot was terrible. I could barely move my arms, but I survived. I didn't get many visitors. It made me realize that I wanted to be friends only with the people who like me just the way I am. I knew my life had changed. I would no longer be a doctor. Instead, I learned to lie still. I began to paint. Since I couldn't sit up in bed, my mom asked a carpenter to make a special easel for me. I grabbed my father's brushes, and then I began. I worked hard, poring over books about art history. My first paintings weren't great. I even tore one up because I was so unhappy with it. But with my mirror, I kept going, painting what I saw. What's she painting? Her best subject. I paint myself because I am so often alone, and because I am the subject I know best. As soon as I could go outside, I brought my paintings to Diego Rivera, the famous painter I had met years earlier. "What do you think?" I said. "The other 3 are okay. This portrait of you is the most original. You have talent." Over time, my portraits became more complex. I began adding pieces of local Mexican art and history, textiles and intricate carvings to show people who I was. This is wonderful. Thank you. I'm just getting started. Eventually, Diego and I got married. We traveled to America, to places like San Francisco, New York, and Detroit, meeting some of the wealthiest people in the world. "Oh, I love the mix of old and new," said Nelson Rockefeller. Just like in high school, some people would insult my clothing. "Look at her outfit. Does she belong in the circus? And those ugly sandals. They're called huaraches. I love these shoes." "So you're a painter?" "Yes, the greatest in the world," she said. That's really what I told him. My time away made me realize that my favorite place of all was home. Back in Mexico, I embraced all the things I loved, my heritage, animals. I had a parrot, a pair of turkeys, an osprey, and even pet monkeys. And of course, painting. Back then, women were expected to be quiet and feminine. I wasn't either of those things. I painted the way I wanted, on metal, glass, tin. I also dressed the way I wanted, including wearing suits. "I love her work," people would say. "It's like a ribbon around a balm. It means beautiful and strong." In addition to painting, I became a teacher, a professor. Draw what you have in your houses: clay, jars, furniture, toys. Paint anything. "Can we paint you?" my students would ask. On the first day, that was exactly what they did. They painted me. The pain from my accident never went away. Some days it was so bad I could barely stand. Even then, I took my students on field trips. Beautiful, isn't it? Paint this. As my health got worse, my 4 most committed students, Los Fridos, came to my Casa Azul for their lessons. They painted everything they saw, and so did I. I wanted to paint, paint, paint. Eventually, I sent them out into the world to paint murals on nearby laundries and taverns. Frida taught us that art shouldn't be in the palaces or just for those with money. Art is for everyone. To honor my work, a gallery owner began planning my first ever one-woman show in Mexico. I was so sick. She was worried I might miss it. So they set up my bed and made me part of the exhibit. She arrived by ambulance on a stretcher. The party was overcrowded and sweaty, and people were everywhere. It was total chaos and absolutely beautiful. Tragedy nearly took my life, but it couldn't take my spirit. Fighting back wasn't easy, especially when people made fun of how I looked and where I was from. But I was determined to see things differently. My face, my clothes, my country, even my pain, these are the colors on my canvas. They don't look like anyone else's, and they shouldn't. That's the best part. Your picture is uniquely yours. Today, Frida Kahlo is considered one of the world's greatest artists. And La Casa Azul is now the Frida Kahlo Museum, open to the public. The museum has this, the last painting she ever did, Viva la Vida, which means long live life. Her husband, Diego Rivera, eventually said, "She's a better painter than I am." She is proof that no one can ever define you, no matter how you look. Her hair looks like a pretzel in this one. That's not a pretzel, it's an infinity sign, something that ties us together and lives forever. Art is like life. It's rarely what it first appears. Instead of following a straight path, your life and your art will twist and turn, taking you on unexpected journeys. It's messy and bold and scary and fun, but it's all part of your picture, a magnificent self-portrait. Look in this mirror. What do you see? I see a work of art. I am Frida Kahlo, and I know that the most beautiful thing is you, just the way you are. Wow, what a great book about an extraordinary person who changed the world, Frida Kahlo. It's been my pleasure to share this book about Frida Kahlo and her art with you today. I hope to see you all again on Lunenburg Storytime. Thank you for watching.